Sahana vavatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chamastajana kalyane niratam karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Mukam karoti vachalam Pangum langhayate girim Yatkrupatamaham vande Paramananda Madhavam. Paramananda Madhavam. Hari Om. So we were seeing the story of Arjuna, or rather this is the story of a sadhaka, like any of us. And what is most important is that through various life lessons we learn the life lessons. Various situations, various experiences we go through, we learn the various lessons that we derive by ourselves. But there are some gaps in these learnings, and to fill these gaps, or rather to know when will all this end, when will I be able to live life at full, without feeling that there is something missing, or without feeling that why can't my success be ever, forever and ever. It is not something which is limited to one particular time period, but that which extends for all times. And why does it have to be certain achievements? Why can't it be all life experiences which are fulfilling for me? So then, in such a scenario, one might want to question, one might want to seek answers, and to such answers, Bhagwan provides the Bhagavad Gita as a guidance book, as a book of unfoldment for ourselves. And here he not only speaks for the battlefield scenario, but more he tells that this is for you, So you have to not just see Arjuna's situation, read his story, but see where parallelly look into your life and see where you can get solutions for yourself through Arjuna, through his experiences, through his questions. See whether you have similar questions, and how these solutions that Bhagwan is providing, how they are so relevant to us even now. Okay, so here, of course, in the first chapter we saw his whole Arjuna's whole grief, how it started from a positive note, and then where it ended to a complete helplessness, right? So here, as just I was just reading the Gita Mahatmyam. So this is different from Gita Dhyanam. Okay, so Gita Dhyanam, as we saw earlier, Gita Dhyanam was written by Madhusudana Saraswati ji, right? And there is the Gita Mahatmyam, which is given in the Padma Purana. So for each, it is interesting, and if you want to, you can even check it up online. So there are stories provided in the Padma Purana, and this is a conversation between Lakshmi Devi and Vishnu Bhagwan. And the beautiful way in which it has been portrayed is how Bhagwan will keep telling stories for each question that Lakshmi Ji is asking him. He is giving stories of different bhaktas and how they came upon the Bhagavad Gita, and how for them each chapter, and this is going for each chapter, okay. The Mahatmyam is also given for each chapter, and for each of these there is a story how a person who was a non-devotee, how he found solutions in the Bhagavad Gita in that particular chapter. And so even for the first chapter also, which is the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, and where you might say, most times people kind of tend to ignore the first chapter, saying that what is there, it is talking of Arjuna's grief. So I don't want to unite with any grief. Already bahut sara, there's a lot of sorrow in my life. I don't want to know about grief. Now you tell me a solution. So maybe we should start from chapter 2. And maybe therefore only Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya ji has also given the commentary, his bhashya from chapter 1 alone. But no, that is not so. So even in that first chapter, we understand the colors of each character of Mahabharata. And in that specifically, we see the character of Arjuna, and also see how he is very strong, and yet in a situation where least expected, he crumbles down, right? And here comes the parallel there, where we have to see our own life sketch and see where we see a pattern of this happening also, right? So anyway, so going back to the Gita Mahatmyam, so here he says that what is the greatness of this Gita. So here he says that so basically if we see what is the problem is that there is a lot of impurity in ourselves, right? And this impurity in our equipment, okay, not in ourself but in our equipment, that impurities which are there, they are the ones which are causing us to not see our true self the way it is, and therefore act out of that limitedness. And even in that limitedness, our thinking is colored by our vasanas, right? So here he says that mala nirmochanam pumsam jalasnanam dine dine sakrit gitam bhasi snanam samsara mala nashanam. So here this is the third verse of the Gita Mahatmyam, where he says that for the external cleanliness, what do we have to do? So much dirt and grime that comes about, especially in these days of pollution, right? So what do we have to do? We have to make sure that we take a bath every day, right, to cleanse ourselves. And then what then to say of the taints or those impurities of the mind? How do I clean them? For that he says, take a dip in the Bhagavad Gita. When you take a dip in the Bhagavad Gita, right, even the first time, that might be sufficient enough for you to cleanse yourself, to cleanse the mind, to see yourself as you are, and not as how you are conceiving yourself to see right now, right? So here he says that samsara, so for the cleansing of the mala which has come about because of the samsara, right? What should be done? Taking a dip in the Bhagavad Gita, that is essential for us. And then how should we go about it? So then in the next verse, in the fourth verse, it is, I'm sure you all are all familiar with this verse. He says, Gita sugita kartavya kim anyai shastra vistaraihi. So he says that Gita itself is sufficient. You don't have to go to any other shastra. If once you have attained the sweetness of this Gita, Kimannai Shastra Vistaraihi. You don't have to go and get some kind of panditya. The Gita itself is sufficient to daily, reflect over and find a solution, find a permanent solution to your problems. Okay. So, of course, the Gita Mahatmyam or Gita Dhyanam, these are more for glorifying or eulogizing that Bhagavad Gita, so that we are encouraged to more and more go and not just read, but also not just read, but chant, dwell over and implement it in our lives. So if you see even in the Mahatmyam, those stories which are given, they will even tell that, even the person who heard the Gita, not even chanted, the one who even heard the Gita, even that person benefited. Even then, what to say of someone who has understood the meaning is and implementing it in their life, right? So such is the Mahatmya, right? So now going on to our chapter 2, first of all, if we remember from the chapter 1, the foremost learning is that, whatever knowledge we have, it is not sufficient when it is limited to the knowledge of the world, right? So therefore, if you see that had it not been for this first chapter, had it not been our understanding of what stage this Arjuna had come to, he was someone who is completely well equipped. He is a great warrior, well skilled in his warfare, and he also was someone who knew the entire battalion, not just his, but also his opponents, those of the Kauravas. And there couldn't have been anyone apt enough to go there and face that battle. And yet, when it came to it, he was not able to stand up. So here, when we see Arjuna itself, when he is speaking, and it was not that he was speaking out of complete lack of clarity, or he didn't have that kind of maturity even, but when he was speaking, he suddenly, would have realized that all the knowledge that he has in terms of dharma, in terms of adharma, in terms of his equipment, as in that which is his body as well as that which is his arms, all was as though not relevant when it came to this situation. So what it comes to is that there is, even the Shastra says that there are two vidyas. One is the Paravidya, that which is the highest knowledge, and then there is the Aparavidya. And most of our life, is going in gathering knowledge of the objects, that is of the world, which is the Aparavidya, right? And of course, we can't say, we definitely shouldn't say also that it is useless. But to face the life battles, it is more important that we have this Paravidya. And when we are equipped with this Paravidya, then no matter what the obstacle, we know that it is only a obstacle that can be, one can overcome it. It is not something which is, a complete wall which one can't break. So this Paravidya, which we do not have, any mention of in our education system, right, unfortunately, is something that who can give us? It is only the Shastra which can provide us. It is only the tradition and culture that can bring us closer to it. So, and for that we have to alone strive. When will that happen? When we face such battles in life and we ask, so where is the actual justice? When will I know myself? So when we start doing this kind of a vichar, when we start asking the relevant questions towards our goal of life, then that knowledge will slowly start revealing itself to us. So that which, which we know and yet we have chosen to forget, one should say, right? That becomes more and more relevant when we start inquiring about our own self. So that Paravidya, right, the highest knowledge, then gains much more importance than this Aparavidya, right? So here also, when we are looking into Arjuna and his situation, here he is fully equipped. He has his brothers. It is not like this is his personal battle. And yet, what has happened? He has lost complete confidence and he has crumbled under the pressure. Now, who has built that pressure for him? That pressure was not built by someone external to him. That pressure was built by him alone. So that also he is unable to see that. He is so blinded by that attachment which he has, or rather the delusion born of that attachment, that he is completely at a loss of words. So one is of course that, Bhagwan will now bring him right on track, but he will also point out to him, he will take this opportunity to show him the right path and point him towards that Paravidya. Okay, so first point is that, that whatever objective knowledge that we have, right, object based knowledge that we have, it is not sufficient for us to face life battles. There is something much more deeper that we ought to explore, and that will come through study of the scriptures. Okay, or more importantly, when we start asking questions about our own self. Then next is that, for all, when Arjuna came on the battlefield, he was perfectly fine. And it was only when he came also and he courageously, his bow and arrow was high up and everything, and he was completely in that warrior mode until he came face to face. That was also his own doing only, where he asked Bhagwan, place the chariot right in the center of the battlefield. And of course Bhagwan chose not to go in front of Duryodhana or any of the others. He just went and placed the chariot in front of in front of Bhishma and Drona. And that led to Arjuna going in a totally different mode of thought, and where his emotions went from just being a warrior ready to face the battlefield to someone who was the grandchild of Bhishma, who was the student of Drona. So in an ideal situation, actually, that warrior, what should he have done? He should have just bowed down to his teachers and he should have said that, give me the blessings so that I may face you well, so that whatever knowledge you have given me, may I use it to the best. But here he lost out completely. And instead of being fully upright, he turns to Krishna and he says, this I can't do now. A kind of pity has overcome him, and as even Sanjaya reports to Dhritarashtra, he says, he has got some kind of compassion, some kind of sympathy he has got. He is overcome by it and he is not able to stand upright. Fine. So here, what was it actually? The root of it was that attachment, that moha, or rather that attachment led to the moha, led to the delusion. So here also, we to draw a parallel for ourselves also, whenever we are in such a situation where we are faced with that object of attachment or that person of attachment, sometimes we we stray away from the right decision. We stray away from the fact that we are here, we are over there, to not crumble under the pressure of emotions, but that is the testing time, and that is when we should be able to be equanimous and do what is to be done, do whatever is our duty at that point of time. So how do you or how do any of us face such situations? Do we come under the pressure of emotions, or do we objectively look at that situation and take the right kind of action, right? That basically is something that we have to tackle day in and day out. And here also, not just in the second chapter, but throughout the 17 chapters, Bhagwan is going to give various ways where our mind is going to, through various enemies within, right? The enemies that we are facing day in and day out, right? They are not somewhere external to us. They are our own emotions. So Bhagwan is going to tell us the solution to not just being aware of them, but also facing them in the right way. Okay, so fine, focusing on the task at hand is what Arjuna couldn't do because of that, not just because of the attachment, but also the delusion born of that attachment, which led to what? Which led to forgetting the viveka, the action that was to be done, driven by that viveka, the discrimination that this is right or this is wrong, or rather following dharma itself. That is what Arjuna lost out on. Then second is that Arjuna, right, this again from the first chapter we come to understand the depth of his character. Even though he had come under his emotions, under the sway of his emotions, yet at the end when he did crumble, he showed his maturity in the line of thought that he came up with. Even to go ahead and say how the loss of lives in the battle, what is it going to lead to in the future, and how it would be totally against dharma as per him, to see that generations would lose out because of this battle. Generations would lose out on the traditions, on the culture, and the entire Kuru clan itself would be gone over a period of time. And how the women folk would suffer, and how that would again lead to the fall of culture, etc. So all that line of thought which he was presenting to Bhagwan, he was doing out of a mature thinking, and it was also clear that he had also read the Vedas to quite some extent, where he also talks of then who will offer any kind of shraddha karma, etc. to the Pitrus. So even that would be lost out. So now at the end of it, but one thing to notice over there is that at the end of it, when he crumbles down, he tells that out of a surrender kind of to Bhagwan, he tells Bhagwan that I don't see a way out of it. And when he says that, it doesn't mean that when he is giving up the case completely. When he says that, it also means that he is now surrendering to Bhagwan, because he knows that Bhagwan Krishna can give him the solution, because he knows that maybe the perspective he has placed before Lord Krishna, it is incorrect. Even though it seems to be correct, it seems to be logically, psychologically correct, yet there might be some flaw, and maybe Bhagwan knows a better answer to it, and therefore Bhagwan never really interjected in between also, right? So this is very clear, so that it is not that Arjuna is saying ki fine, it's done, so maybe you can drop me to the next corner and I will leave the battlefield itself. We are not saying that. He dropped, yes, he did keep down the bow and arrow, but he as though surrendered it down to Lord Krishna himself. And it was as though he was asking him now for a solution. And yes, so let's look at what is told in this second chapter now. So this is the Sankhya Yoga, right? Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha अथ द्वितीयोऽध्यायः साङ्ख्ययोगः सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदन. So here, this is the second chapter and it is called the Sankhya Yoga. Okay. So one might ask whether this Sankhya Yoga is related to the Sankhya philosophy. Okay, one of the darshanas, one of the 6 schools of thought is the Sankhya darshana, right? But this is not that philosophy, this is not pointing to that philosophy, this is rather that which talks of the essence of a thing. Okay. So the definition of Sankhya here is Samyak Khyayate iti Sankhya. Samyak Khyayate, that which reveals well. Okay, that which reveals the knowledge of a thing very clearly is that Sankhya. So what it means essentially is that which is the essence of a thing is that which reveals the essence of a thing is that Sankhya. Okay, and that is what is going to be revealed in this second chapter. Okay, so here he says we are going back to Sanjaya, right? Even in the last chapter also it was Sanjaya who ended and he was talking to Dhritarashtra, he was narrating to the status of things over there in the battlefield to Dhritarashtra, and here he says that it is very clear. What is very clear? That Arjuna is in a very pitiful kind of a state. So he says here, tam tatha krupaya vishtam ashrupurna kulekshanam vishidantam idam vakyam uvacha Madhusudana. And to this pitiful Arjuna, now who is going to speak? Madhusudana is going to speak to him. So here he says that why did he come to this kind of pitiful state? Because he saw he saw the great men who had been so much a part of his life, and out of that pity for the people, because now they are going to be at war, there's going to be a lot of bloodshed, and out of that it is as though he has crumbled down to a sense of despondency and he has fallen down, and now to such a person, to such an Arjuna, it is Madhusudana who is going to speak. So here this krupaya avishtam, that means that he is overcome by that pity. He has also got this krupana bhava, means as though he's become reduced to a lot of compassion. But actually we don't know whether he has pity for the people opposite or whether it is pity for himself. That is what now Bhagwan is going to reveal. And it is not that Bhagwan is going to be very soft, and he is addressed to as Madhusudana, the one who will sweetly kind of bring that truth to Arjuna. No, he is not going to resort to any kind of pity for Arjuna. More we will see how he actually uses language which will wake up or jolt Arjuna out of this pitifulness. Okay, so to this pitiful Arjuna, what does Bhagwan say? So he says, Shri Bhagavan uvacha kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anaryajustam asvargyam akirtikaram Arjuna. Again I will chant it. Shri Bhagavan uvacha kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam anaryajustam asvargyam akirtikaram Arjuna. So actually, some of the commentators, some of the Mahatmas, they have said that this verse Bhagwan would not have said so poetically. He would have had a lot of force, and he would have, as though like a whiplash, it would have come to Arjuna. In the sense, with a lot of anger, he would have told Arjuna, you think, like in some Hindi movies also, someone has said, like, in a Hindi movie, like there's this Sholay dialogue. Did you think that, तुमने क्या सोचा, भगवान शाबाशी देगा? So here Bhagwan will definitely not give Arjuna शाबाशी or a supportive shoulder to cry on. Here Bhagwan is telling Arjun, you think you are, such a pitiful person? You are that Arjuna whom I know, who has fought so long. And how come you are overcome by such emotions, and such a pitifulness has overcome you, that you are begging, as though you are, come to this begging kind of state, and you have sat down here on the battlefield. What has come upon you? So here it is not definitely Bhagwan being very kind to him, but here he asks him, kutastva, means from where? Or whence did this impotence come upon you? Or here more he says, kashmalamidam, right? So here he says, kutastva kashmalamidam vishame samupasthitam. In that first line he says, from where, am I talking to the same Arjuna? From where has this kind of a state come upon you, Arjuna, where you are so dejected? You are that warrior who was ready to, any moment now you might have given the opportunity, you would have started with the Brahmastra itself. You are that Arjuna who fought, who competed for that Pashupata Astra with that Kirata Shiva. So you did so much of tapas for that itself. And here is your opportunity to use it, to show your full prowess over whatever warfare art you have learnt, you have gained for so long, and you can do it. And yet what has happened? Kashmalam, this is kind of like a obstacle which has come about, which shouldn't be there at all. It is like someone who had for years done coaching, and someone who had done a lot of day and night study, and they have to face the exams. Finally, after so long, they are waiting for that day, and they have to answer the exams, and suddenly they say that, oh, maybe I am not fit for this exam. There are better people for it. So this is the kind of situation where Arjuna has kind of crumbled down, where he knew he can do his best, and yet here he is saying that, no, I don't think I can fight this battle. Look who all are there, and it will be completely unjust to go and fight them. How can he even say that? So here he says, not just that, he says, vishame samupasthitam. And it is not like you are going to, even if he had said this the previous night or something, before going for battle, maybe even the previous night he would have thought out, and then he would have said it, and then they would have had some kind of a discussion or debate whether to go for battle or no. No, here he had come completely prepared. It is both sides are right there. Samupasthitam, everyone is there. It is not that suddenly everyone has vanished and Arjuna is saying, good, we should not fight this battle. No, here everyone is ready and present, and now you are saying, no, maybe I should not, maybe I am not eligible to fight these people, so I think I should leave this battlefield. So here, Krishna is very disappointed. It is very clear the way, the use of words that he has, done over here. It is definitely looking like he is not happy with his friend, and he is trying to shake him out of this stupor which has come on him. He says that, one place, now this, when we talk of Arjuna, right, his name Arjuna, what does it signify? Arjunatvat Arjuna, the one who is well equipped to acquire a lot of wealth and acquire a lot of proficiency, that is that Arjuna. Okay, and here is, and exactly he is that embodiment of that Arjuna only. So it's a right word, name also given to him. Also another etymology says that it is Rujutvad Arjuna. Rujutvad, what does it mean? It means the one who is straightforward, one who is kind of pure, honest. That is this Arjuna. And if we look at the etymology of Bhagwan, who is Bhagwan? Bhagwan is the one who is possessor of 6 bhagas. So 6 bhagas, what is that? So these 6 fortunes, is what this Bhagwan has. What are they? So he says that there is, Aishwarasya samagrasya dharmasya yashaha shriyah vairagya jnanam or moksha. So these 6 are what any good leader should be equipped with. What is that? So here, it is Aishwarya, that is that wealth. Not just wealth, there is also Yasha. Yasha in terms of success, in terms of prosperity. And Shriya, that, that wealth which is not limited to the worldly wealth alone. It is also that wealth which is the wealth of knowledge. And then that knowledge alone can give that person that vairagya also. Vairagya as in that dispassion. Even though he might have lot of wealth, he has that dispassion also towards it, because he is a leader. That leader, for him, that if he has the weakness towards something, then that person will not be able to sustain that wealth also, right? So that vairagya also has to be there. And further is that moksha, right? For that person, his vision should not be limited to the aparavidya. His vision should be expanded, should be able to expand to or encompass that moksha, that liberation, which is the highest of knowledge, which is the paravidya. Fine. So now, of course, here we are talking of Lord Krishna. He is definitely that Bhagwan, right? And he is seeing the whole situation from a holistic perspective. He is not seeing a narrow vision. Therefore, being the charioteer, he is not, thinking of himself as that charioteer or that horseman itself alone. He is seeing a greater perspective to his role of being with Arjuna, because he knows that not only does he have to steer his chariot in the right direction, he has to steer his thinking also in the right direction. He should make sure that his mind is equipoised, is right there, available to, to face whatever blows that he is going to get in this battlefield. And he also knows that Arjuna is central to that Pandava army. And for Bhagwan, this battle is not Arjuna's personal battle. This is not a Vyashti perspective, this is more a Samashti perspective. So for Bhagavan, it is more from a dharma perspective that he is looking at this battle, and therefore he knew that, if he just kind of, he knows if he patted him, etc., or if he gave him some words of confidence, he knows that he would have still risen up and fought the battle. But at the same time, if he stopped at giving him the life lessons that he should get, of showing him the true identity of himself, if he had not to give him that knowledge now, then later in the battle itself he would have crumbled at some other point. And therefore he has taken this opportunity to give him that highest knowledge. And also, just as modern psychology would say, he allowed Arjuna to, go on and have his fill of, pouring out his heart. And it was only then, after he was at a complete loss of words, where, his hysteria had completely crumbled down. Only then Bhagavan said, okay, now is the time. Now he can't even speak anything. Now he can listen to me. So now only my words will fully register. So therefore he now starts talking to him. But before that, he must jolt him out of this kind of thinking that has overcome him and show him the true picture. So therefore he says that, so the words also that he uses, he says, kutasva kashmalamidam. From where has this dejection come? That dejection is what? That dejection or that kashmalam is what? That which will stall you from proceeding to do your task at hand, which will totally deflect you from the destination that you had first set out on. That is that kashmalam, right? And so just as we said that here you are completely, fully there to face that test of your life, and suddenly you think that, am I actually eligible? As if, before this you had not thought also. Whereas Arjuna knew, and of course Bhagavan was witness to it, that they had fully thought out for days together whether to go for battle or no. They had used the strategies also for that. Sama, Dama, Bheda, Danda. Right? All that they had gone for, and only then they went for that Danda. They said, okay, now there is no option left. Duryodhana is, not budging in any way. He wants that war. So let's give it to him. So let's go on for this battle. So it is not that, this decision was made in one evening. And here Arjuna is where, where he should now be ready to shoot out the first arrow, and he is saying that no, I don't think this can happen. So he says like, how can this come over you? You can't be, you might be joking. And truly, it is visible that you are not joking, because you are fully reduced to tears, etc. So then he says that do a 3-factor test. What is this 3-factor test? So he says that, first this anarya jushtam, that word where he has used, that it is completely un-Aryan-like for you to do this. Now that definitely should have jolted Arjuna, because he thinks of himself as the greatest of Aryans, and he looks up at ideals such as Rama, such as his own father, Pandu. He also looks up at someone like Bhishma. So, are you saying, it is as if Krishna is asking him, do you think any of your ideals would have done this? Run away from the battlefield? What will they say to you? It is again as though, he's slapping him. He's saying, shame on you, kind of. How can you think of this, when any of your heroes wouldn't even have thought of doing this? In fact, it is also this particular factor is also something which is like an advice to any of us. When we are kind of perplexed and we don't know which way to go, it is always good to have that ideal in mind, that mentor in mind, and think what would they have done in that kind of situation, especially that ideal being from the same field as you are, right? So when in a kind of quizzical situation, or what is the best thing to do? Look into the lives of the greats in that field and see what they would have done in such a situation, right? And that is the advice which Bhagwan is giving to him also. Second is, he says, aswargyam. Is this going to take you to Swarga? And actually Arjuna had told in the earlier he had told, when he was bantering around, he was saying that, it is better, if they come, if Duryodhana and his brothers, if they come with the weapons, I will just sit down and let them take my life, I'll get the kirti of going to Swarga at least. So he said, no, there is no kind of kirti in this at all. In fact, it will lead to akirti. It is not going to give you any Swarga, nor is it going to give you any kind of fame. Swarga will come to whom? So here again, in that second factor of aswargyam, Bhagwan is reminding him that this is not your dharma. Your dharma as a Kshatriya, as an Arya, is to fight the battle. And if you are running away from that, no way you are getting a place in the Swarga. Swarga is for those who are, following dharma. If while performing your dharma, you got killed in the battle, yes, sure, you will get that seat over there. But now, no chance of it. This is out of, it is out of your own fear that you are saying that, okay, let them come and kill me. That is not a way out, that is just escape route. So this is not definitely going to give you Swarga, nor is there going to be any kind of kirti, akirtikaram. So that kirti will actually lead to infamy, or it will defame you. Why? Because people will, for ages, for generations together, then they will know, that Arjuna, he was so great. He had the best of focus, he was the best of archers, etc. But what happened at the end? He gave up at the battle and he ran away. So they will not remember your greatness, they will only remember your giving up when you should have actually faced the battle. So again, he is telling him, give that up. And then in the next verse, he goes further to jolt him ahead. He says, Klaibhyam masmagamah partha naitattvayupapadyate shudram hridayador balyam tyakto tishtha parantapa. It says Klaibhyam, it is as though you have reduced to impotence. So he is either trying to bring up into his memory. Into whose memory? Into Arjuna's memory. He is trying to bring up, oh, do you think, are you thinking of yourself as that Brihanalla whom, you had disguised yourself as this Brihanalla for a year when you were incognito. After being in Vanvas, in the 13th year where you had to hide from the Kauravas, what did you do? You had taken up the guise of this Brihanalla, who was a dancer, and that dancer was more woman-like than that man that you are, O Arjuna. So has that character, kind of overcome you, and that's why you have reduced to this kind of impotence, this kind of talk that you are doing. So he says, Klebhyam masmagamah partha naitattvaya yupapadyate. It does not befit you at all. This kind of talk and these actions that you are reduced to, it doesn't at all completely befit you. And so therefore, and then he goes on to also say what that character is like. So he says, Shudram It is kind of like very narrow-minded. Shudram Rudaya Daurbalyam. And this is amounted because of the, your weakness of heart that has given rise to this kind of a narrow-mindedness or this kind of a fearsomeness for you. So, Tyaktvotishtha Parantapa. And then he commands him, drop it. Tyaktvotishtha, drop it and stand up right now. Tyaktvotishtha Parantapa. And then he also calls him as Parantapa. He is referring to Arjuna as Parantapa. The one, whose presence itself kinds of puts that kind of fever into the hearts of his opponents. Parantapa, the scorcher of foes. So he says, yield not to impotence, O Partha, it does not befit the caste of this mean weakness of heart, right? So here further, it is as though Bhagwan is very sure that this is a temporary blinding of his intellect. Whose intellect? Of Arjuna's intellect. Somewhere he has come under the flow of his emotions upon looking at his elders, and then that has led to another flow of thought, and he has completely lost track of why he was here. It was not that his love for Dhritarashtra or rather the entire Kauravas was not there before. It was there, but it was more tinged with the kind of dislike for their behavior. He totally knew that they were adharmis, and that love which he has for Bhishma and Drona, it is as though misplaced. Yes, that love should be there. It should not go because you are their opponent, but he should also objectively think that these are the same elders, these are the same teachers who have, by being on the side of Duryodhana, what have they done? They have gone on the side of adharma. They knew that when they were playing the game of dice, they knew that when there was so much of other injustice being done, and yet they didn't do anything about it. So how can Arjuna, become so overcome with compassion for them? How can he think in this way and just by one sight of those people, whereas he knew fully well why they were there for this war. So he knew that Arjuna's intellect was not given the opportunity to stress on why he should be fighting the war, and his mind had been fully overcome by emotions. So Bhagwan knew that now is the point when he should be able to clearly think. He should be given the reasoning not by someone external to him, but he should see for himself. It is one who is blinded with so much of emotions is not immediately going to go back to his past. He needs some more reasoning at his own level to see things clearly, and this is evident, of course, by further line of thought which is put forth by Arjuna himself. So therefore also one thing that comes to the fore is that how much attachment plays a role in our decision making, and especially sometimes at most important times. And this attachment is not something which is our strength. This we have to be completely clear about. Attachment to something or someone becomes a weakness. And if we go through history, we will come to know about so many examples where many kings lost out because of their weakness or their attachment to something or someone. And here the same game is played out at the level of Arjuna, where Bhagwan is trying to point it out, and he is telling him, come out of that delusion. If there is war, definitely there is going to be death, there is definitely going to be bloodshed, there is definitely going to be loss of blood and kith and kin. But that doesn't mean that you don't fight that war. That doesn't mean that you do what is your true duty. So here, therefore, he tells him, Tyaktotishta parantapa. He doesn't tell him, he is actually instructing him that drop this narrow-mindedness which has come upon you because of the weakness of your heart. Drop it now and go and fight. But then, here again, Arjuna, when he answers, it is evident that he doesn't know how to play forth in this scenario. He can't really think clearly still. He is listening to Bhagavan, but he doesn't understand how to implement what Bhagavan is telling him. So in the next 2 verses he says, Arjuna uvacha katham bhishmamaham sankhe dronam cha madhusudana ishubhiv pratiyotsyami pujarhar varisudana. So he says, O Madhusudana, how can I fight this Drona as well as Bhishma? They are those who are fit to be worshipped. They are my elders. How, and I have explained it before also. How can I now, those whom I look up to so well, how can I now fight against them? How can I shoot them, and make them my target? It definitely is not something which comes under my line of thought. It definitely puts a test on me. It definitely puts me under a lot of strain and stress. So I don't think this can happen. How do I do it? You tell me, because I am not able to do it myself. Then further he says, Guru nahatva hi mahanubhavan shreyo bhoktum bhaikshamapi haloke hatva thakamastu guru nihaiva bhunjiya bhogan drudira pradigdan. So then, he goes on to justify why he can't. Why he can't, and he doesn't know how to, because, he says that, in this world, rather than killing those who are my gurus, those whom I look up to so much, it is better that I drop this bow and arrow and take sannyas and go begging for bhiksha, rather than, living in the mahals over there. I can't do this, because what will happen? Yes, if I go to battle, definitely there is going to be death. But will I then be able to enjoy the food or the pleasures then? Because each time, each morsel that I will eat, then that is going to make me remind me that it is stained with the blood of these my elders and my teachers. So each memory that I try to create in the future, it will be stained by the blood of my kith and kin. So how do you think I can, how do you think? Yes, fine, you have nicely told me, drop this and just go and battle. But how do I do that? I think it is better to take sannyas and go out of this battlefield. I'll just go and people will not even recognize me. I will go and with a begging bowl, I will live my life as a sannyasi. So this is what Arjuna comes down to. And then further also he tells why he can't, why he doesn't see reason in fighting this battle. Okay. So we'll see that in the next session. Thank you very much for coming today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Hari Om. Thank you.